Folks, the crash out from the Notre Dame community and fan base is real. They cannot take it. They cannot take it. They cannot take it. But I'm damn sure going to give it because they lived in my comments for 3 weeks. They've lived in my DMs for 3 weeks, and they're going to get every bit of energy that I've got left in me after this long weekend of college football. Ladies and gentlemen, the Canes are in the big dance of college football. We are in the CFP taking on Texas A&M, and I got another video for that one because the talking is already starting. But I gotta address the elephant in the room, and I gotta address the Notre Dame fan crash out. But no one bigger than one Dick Vitale. Whoa, let's talk about it. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Hurricanes Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. I am your host, Rudy Rodriguez Shomont. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, hit us up on all the social media. If you haven't seen, we do a lot of shorts on social media that I do not post on YouTube. So you got to follow us on Hurricanes Unfiltered and Come On Now podcast on Instagram, because I do some shorts on there that are badass, getting tons of traction. And that's where a lot of the crash out is coming from. But man, in our lives, we've had Notre Dame fans, we've had Oklahoma fans, we had, who do we have? We had Texas A&M fans, we had Ohio State fans. They can't stay away from us because they're scared. They're scared. We all now know why Joey Galloway was so he was politicking so hard to not have to see us. Why? Because he knows that we're dangerous. He knows that we're the scariest team in the playoffs because he's watching football. And today he gets on a podcast with Kirk Herbstreit and Mario Cristobal, and Cristobal called him out on his bullshit. Well, no, it was the process, coach. No, bro. You were saying that everyone was better than Miami. So cut the shit. But let's jump in on this Dickie Vitale thing, man. Dick Vitale, renowned broadcaster. I mean, the loudest mofo on the face of the earth when it comes to basketball. We all know who Dickie V is. And I got profound respect for Dick Vitale, but I'm gonna call him on his bullshit. Like, seriously, bro, stay in your lane, man. Know your role and shut your mouth, like The Rock says. Did I do the eyebrow good? Did I do it well enough? Know your role and shut your mouth, you Rudy Poo candy ass. Like, come on now. Come on now. You're a basketball guy. You have been shilling for the Duke Blue Devils and Mike Krzyzewski for the entirety of my human existence. Brother, when have I ever heard you talk about Notre Dame? Never. But let's take a listen to this thing, because this is a crash out from Dick Vitale, where I swear this man is damn near in tears. I mean, maybe it's the old age. I don't know. But he is definitely on the cusp of crying, and he's doing a lot of it here. And I did comment here, and I got some responses. And maybe people think I'm a little bit rough. I don't give a damn. I don't care. Let's take a listen.
Hey guys, I'm really addressing this to the College Football Playoff Committee. I know they're supposed to be this dedicated guys, love the collegiate sports, but I'm really having a tough time. Every Tuesday for 5 consecutive weeks, you post on ESPN the teams you think, the top 12, that would be eligible at that time to qualify for the playoffs. Every week, not 2 of the weeks, but all 5 weeks, you had Notre Dame over Miami. You had Notre Dame in there, and every week. How logically do they drop out on the last week when they've done nothing in terms of losing the game? During that period, Miami lost 2 games to unranked teams. I have a real tough time with that. You make a big deal all about Notre Dame losing the opening game of this season to start the season, but yet you do nothing and say nothing about Alabama getting beat by Florida State, a subpar 500 team. I have a tough time logically understanding that. How do you explain the 5 weeks of having Notre Dame there and then bouncing them and then nothing? They didn't zilch in terms of doing anything in causing that to happen. Didn't lose a game, blew out everybody they played, and the bottom line is they got a raw deal. They got a raw deal. Those kids belong in the playoffs. They belong in the playoffs. Yes, I'm a big biased Notre Dame fan. We have 11 degrees on the family from Notre Dame, and we love Notre Dame. We only want what's right, and it is not right tonight that they're not part of that playoff.
All right, let me address Mr. Dick Vitale. By the way, you see my comment. Take your Notre Dame jacket off and close your mouth and stick to basketball. Get in the conference. Last year, you lost to Northern Illinois and made the playoffs. Head-to-head matters in football. Yes, Notre Dame was a 28.5-point favorite last year over Northern Illinois and lost on their home field. And I charge you, go look at their schedule after they lost to Northern Illinois. Go look at it. If you haven't looked at it, I can give you an idea. Their best win was Louisville. Number 15 ranked Louisville. That was their best win on their schedule last year after losing to Northern Illinois. Yet somehow, miraculously, Notre Dame just does this. So their ranked wins last year, they beat Texas A&M their first game of the season. They did. And then they lost to Northern Illinois. And then they beat Louisville. And their other 2 ranked wins, wait a second, Army and Navy. We all know that Army and Navy being ranked is like meaningless. It's meaningless. Yes, they win games occasionally. They have some good teams occasionally. They were decent this year. They were good this year, I guess. And Notre Dame beat them 49-10. A good Navy team gets slaughtered by Notre Dame. Like, come on. You played 3 teams that went 2-10, Dick Vitale. I know you don't watch basketball. I know you don't watch football. They beat 3 teams that were 2-10. You did not blow everyone out. So be accurate because accuracy matters. Facts matter. You had a 12-10 game versus Boston College. 12-10. Late in the third quarter. You won 25-10 over a 2-10 Boston College. Purdue scored 30 points on Notre Dame. Purdue didn't score 30 points on anybody in their conference. And I know Notre Dame's not in their conference, but those are the good teams. The teams that were better than the dog doo-doo that they played to start the season. So Notre Dame, yeah, so sorry. It sucks. I know. I lived it. We were there last year. We were number 2 in the country and lost 2 out of 3 games and fell completely out of the ranking behind a 3-loss Alabama, no less. Now, we wouldn't have made it because Clemson did win and would have screwed everything up for us as well, as they ended up as the 12th seed. Had SMU won, if Miami had actually been ranked ahead of Alabama, as they should have been, Miami makes the playoffs. And everyone was afraid of Miami's offense. It's just that Miami's defense was terrible and that Miami lost games at the wrong time of the season. Well, you know what? Alabama did that exact same thing. And the College Football Playoff Committee found a way to not move Alabama 1 single inch after getting mud stomped, taken over and bent over 28-7 to Georgia, while every single conference championship game over the last 3 years has had some level of consequence for the loser. Every team that has lost a conference championship game since 2023 has dropped after losing at least 1 spot. In fact, the SEC in 2023, the Georgia Bulldogs were undefeated and ranked number 1. And they played in the college football. They played in the SEC championship and lost. They lost. And they didn't drop from 1-2 or 1-3 or 1-4. They dropped to number 6. and Alabama got into the playoffs over Florida State, who was undefeated. Georgia dropped 5 spots, losing to Alabama. I'm pretty sure it was Alabama in the conference championship. And Georgia drops 5 spots. In fact, I'm just curious to take a look back at the 2023 SEC conference championship game because it was a close game, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was 27-24. Alabama beats Georgia 27-24. The problem was for Georgia, the problem that existed for Georgia specifically was that you had four, four undefeated teams. Four. Never seen nothing like that before. 2023, you had 4 undefeated teams. So what ends up happening to Georgia is they get dropped, but the comedy and the farce of it all, the farce of all of it, was that Florida State dropped behind Alabama as an undefeated conference champion. Remember, Michigan was undefeated. They won the national championship 15-0. Washington was undefeated. I'm sorry, Texas was not undefeated. So you had 3 undefeated teams and you had 12-1 Texas. So 12-1 Texas jumped up 4 spots. Did they jump up 4 spots? So Texas jumped up 4 spots to number 3 from number 7. I don't even remember it clearly enough. Yeah, they jumped 4 spots from number 7 to number 3. Alabama jumped from number 8 to number 4 after beating, because Texas was not in the SEC yet, right? Let me confirm. Texas had not been moved. Yeah, Texas was still not in the SEC. That was the issue. Texas was still in the Big 12. They beat Oklahoma State in their conference championship. They were 12-1, and they jumped up 4 spots. And Florida State dropped out, and Georgia dropped out. When reality was probably should have been number 1 Michigan, number 2 Washington, number 3 Florida State, and number 4 Georgia. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. And they dropped out an SEC number 1 seed. So what they're standing on now is all bull crap. A number 1 SEC seed should not drop. Everyone's dropped except for this year's Alabama. Here's the problem with people like Dick Vitale and Notre Dame fans. Y'all must have forgot. Like, your beef should have always been with Alabama. Should have always been an Alabama beef. Straight up and down. Your beef was Alabama, but you focused your thoughts on Miami. You made Miami your beef. Like, why was Miami ever your beef? You lost to Miami. In fact, you should have been championing for Miami. In reality, because there's no one in God's green earth that would sit here and say, yeah, we lost to you, but we should be ahead of you. No, that's not how shit works, bro. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. This is football. This is sports. Stuff is decided on a basketball court, on a football field, on a baseball field. Head to head at the end of the day always is what it takes precedence when we're comparing 2 teams and everything's equal for the most part, and they played each other. Who won the game? Doesn't matter if it was the first week of the year. I don't disagree with him on the Alabama Florida State thing. I don't. Why weren't Notre Dame fans screaming about that weeks ago? Why not? There's a serious problem with the CFP. There's no doubt about it. I don't want to hear about you messing with the kids. These kids are paid millions of dollars to fight. Take a fucking breath. They'll live. They'll live. They're making a lot of these guys are making millions and millions of dollars to play college sports. This isn't 1996. This isn't 2004. We are in a different generation where these are grown men playing sports for money. They're professional athletes, whether they want to call them that or not. And you jumping on a podium and crying about it and saying, we got 11 degrees in my family from Notre Dame. You didn't even go to Notre Dame, bro. You went to Seton Hall. You're a Jersey boy from Seton Hall. You didn't go to Notre Dame. I've never heard you champion for Notre Dame basketball. I've never heard you champion for Notre Dame football all of a sudden you're championing this Notre Dame cause. It's comical. You're a basketball guy. Stick to hoops, bro. Stick to hoops because you don't even. I don't completely disagree with you, dude. I don't. But this crying, oh, whine me, cry me, dude. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Miami went from being ranked number 2 in the country, losing 2 of 3, and dropping 16 spots, which is why Miami was ranked behind Notre Dame to begin with, as they should never have been ranked behind Notre Dame at all, not with identical records. Because when you lose, it's not supposed to matter. It's what your resume is supposed to be. That's why the CFP coming out with weekly rankings is ridiculous. Just hold that shit to the end of the year. Wait for all the resumes, and then you can make your decisions. Because you know what would happen right now? Realistically, what would have happened if they had just never announced anything? And yes, conference championship games have to have matter. They have to have consequence. You lose, you might be out, bro. What makes BYU different than Alabama? I don't care that Alabama beat Georgia in week 4. They got slaughtered the other day. They got slaughtered. They lost to Oklahoma just a couple of weeks ago. This team lost 2 of their last 3 real games, minus that fake Division 6 opponent. They lost 2 of their last 3 real games, and yet somehow they jump up because they beat Auburn. Again, they damn near lost 2. But if you hold off to the end of the year, you know what would have happened? Miami would have ranked in the top 7 probably. And Notre Dame probably would have been ranked right behind them. Because I don't care if you got 1 loss or 2 losses. I'm being real. I don't really care. Because there are some 10-2 teams that are absolutely better than 11-1 teams. Because you can go look at schedules and do deeper dives on schedules and really get an idea of who these teams played. Texas A&M, after they played Notre Dame, played nobody for 10 weeks and got their ranking and still struggled against bad SEC opponents. This SEC myth that the SEC is so much better than everybody else, no, it's not. No, it's not. Because if it was so much better than everybody else, Miami would have lost to Florida or had a close game. But instead, Miami dust mopped Florida. Georgia struggled with Florida. Ole Miss struggled with Florida. And Florida was 4-8. Like these teams struggled with Florida, but Miami dusted them. Spare me, man. If the SEC was so great, Florida State at 5-7 would never have done what they did to Alabama. But guess what? They did. The 14th team in the ACC 14th ranked team in the ACC standings beat Alabama's ass. So I agree with him. I don't think Alabama should be in the playoffs. I think Notre Dame should be in the playoffs. But this crybaby shit, he's talking about he spent the whole first minute and a half talking about Miami. How can you? Because they ranked Miami so far back that they screwed us. They were trying to screw us. They really believed that we would lose again, and we didn't. In fact, we were playing better against Pitt than we were playing when we played Notre Dame, and when we played South Florida, then we played Florida, we played Florida State. Like, this is what happened. And through 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, Miami had probably the best resume in college football, even with 2 losses. Acknowledge reality, man. I feel somewhat bad for Notre Dame, but then I don't. When they jump up and say, we're opting out of a bowl game, we're doing this, we're doing that. Well, fuck you then, Notre Dame, you bitch-ass motherfuckers. Because that's the exact attitude that we expect from people like you who are getting $50 million from NBC, and all you do is play a bunch of dogs most of the year. You play dogs. And then you want a cookie for playing dogs. You played dogs last year and got into the playoffs, losing to a 28.5-point underdog. Sorry, you got 1 do-over. You don't get another. And yes, the CFP needs to be fixed. They need to be at 16 teams. I said that junk when they started at 4. You need a 16-team playoff like every other football division in the country. They all have 16. You don't need to guarantee any of these bums like James Madison and Tulane a damn freaking playoff berth. No, you want to get in the playoffs, be ranked in the top 16. Be a top 16 team. Dump all the automatic bids. You don't need automatic bids. You want to keep doing conference championship football games? Guess what? They're gonna matter. Don't tell me it doesn't count. No, it has to count. Otherwise, cancel the games. But there's too much money in them. So they don't want to cancel them. But guess what? If that's the case, then they're going to matter. And if you have a team hovering 9-10 as a number one seed, playing in the SEC championship or the Big Ten championship or whatever, and you lose, guess what? In the 12-team tournament, you should be gone because Alabama does not belong in the playoffs. I completely agree. But why weren't y'all calling for Bama for weeks? No, you called for Miami. So you know what I say to you, Dick Vitale, and every other Notre Dame fan that's been calling for Miami and saying Miami doesn't belong for the last 4 or 5 weeks? Fuck you. Eat it. Suck a dick. Hurricanes Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. Like, subscribe, and follow, and we will see you, Texas A&M, in the playoffs. And Notre Dame, you can watch as your big brothers who busted your ass are competing against each other. I'm done.